Alex Moskowitz. Really funny guy, really intelligent guy. Has a whole lot of opinions about space, intergalactic travel, science, you name it. I understand he's CMU's go-to guy for any space-related questions. We're glad he's around. For me, I remember being on stage with him. He loved cargo shorts, but he never took out the change. So every scene we seemed to have, he had keys or something in there. But you know what, for today, let's stick to the space questions. And I've got a few. So, Alex Moskowitz, now you're talking with Dave McKay. First space question. SpaceX just happened. Why have we not traveled to Mars?
Thanks, Dave. That's an excellent question. There are many reasons it is difficult to get humans to Mars. The first one is that you have to pick a method of getting there. The simplest one is simply by running. For that, you'd want to pick somebody like Usain Bolt, but he's simply too tall to fit into the spaceship. We have tried to resort to other methods. One attempt was made to try to take a pogo stick off the Empire State Building, and he managed to launch himself not into orbit. Unfortunately, he wasn't wearing a parachute, so we didn't get data from that run. The most common method is to pile up explosives under the astronauts until it's about the size of a skyscraper and light it, and hope that the explosion doesn't blow them to bits, but does launch them into space. Now, once you've launched into space, there are further problems. For example, most physicists and engineers are introverts, which means they can't stand another person for more than 10 minutes. And the journey to Mars is 6 months long. So, we've had to come up with ideas on how to keep them entertained. Now, back when Game of Thrones was still good, it was thought that this is it. This is the thing that's going to get the astronauts to Mars without going crazy and pushing each other out of the airlock. But everybody knows that Game of Thrones messed up their last season. And since then, we've been searching for a replacement. And that's the thing that's been keeping us from going to Mars. It's not the engineers or the physicists, they're working their butts off. But Hollywood has let us down in their imagination and their ability to make coherent series that go on for long enough to get a bunch of people 6 months to Mars with nothing else to do. Now you might think, why not just stream news shows on the way there? But Earth's Wi-Fi only extends out
I think
to
you're
about the
getting
moon.
off topic.
NASA has tried making a bigger Wi-Fi extender, and that is set to be launched in about 2035 whenever they get the approval from Comcast. Now, they've been stuck on hold with Comcast customer support for the last 6 years, and so that really hasn't gone anywhere. So that's where we're at. Now, once they get to Mars, they have to land. There's several methods to do this. The first is to stick their hand in the atmosphere like a paddle in the water, but Mars has a very thin atmosphere that might not work. The second method is parachutes. While those are reliable, it's really boring, and NASA just wants to up their game. So they've decided to tape tinfoil balls to the bottom of the lander. Hopefully that'll absorb the impact when they land, and also let them keep their food warm when they get there.
Well, it's nice to have warm food. I think you're screwing with me. All right, one last question. And I just have to ask because it's on everybody's mind and it's been pretty controversial. Tell me, Alex Moskowitz, is Pluto a planet? And be real with us. Be real.
Now, Dave, personally, I'm tired of this question. Is Pluto a planet? Pluto not a planet? We've been fighting about it for years. The answer is clearly no. However, there's another question we have to ask, which is, do aliens think Pluto is a planet?
Aliens?
Now, this is actually a very complicated question, and for a while, philosophers had to debate it because we didn't have the telescopes powerful enough to answer this. But with the recent discovery of more exoplanets and how to find them, we can finally put this very important question to rest. Now, there are several ways of finding an exoplanet. The first is called the radial velocity method, where you look at the motion of the star, in our case the sun, and how it's impacted by the gravity of Pluto. Now, in this case, Pluto would have no effect. Pluto is a tiny, inconsequential object out in the middle of nowhere that doesn't even deserve to be called a dirty snowball.
You need to respect dirty snowballs.
Sorry, I'm letting my personal opinions get in on here. Where was I? Right. So Pluto would not show up in the radial velocity method. Now there's another method called the transit method. It's what happens when you look at a star. These motorcycles come here every night screaming that Pluto's a planet, and I simply cannot abide that.
I love motorcycles and Pluto.
Where was I? Yes, the transit method. If a star passes, is passed by, if those motorcycles really get on my nerves. If a planet passes in front of a star, we see that the star's light gets dimmer. Now, if you were looking at our solar system and you picked up Pluto this way, you would see it get dimmer by a little bit. However, because Pluto does not orbit in the same plane as other planets, we wouldn't see those other planets if you could see the dimming from Pluto being in front of the Sun. Therefore, you would include that Pluto has indeed cleared out its orbit of other objects and conclude that it is actually a planet. So aliens would think that Pluto is a planet. However, if they came and investigated, they would clearly see that they are in the wrong, and that Pluto is not a planet because Neptune is in its orbit and is way bigger and way better and definitely deserves to be called a planet. Now, there's one other method to detecting stars, and that's to go visit them. And if we were to go visit other solar systems, we could look for other Pluto-like objects and then put them in their place and tell them that they're not a planet either. And that is the ultimate goal of humanity, to reach to the stars and tell the universe what its order is. Thank you.
Well, Alex, we sure did learn a whole lot today. Thanks so much for all of your time, and I don't know, live long and prosper, or to infinity and beyond. Whatever gets you going. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for letting us get comfy. My God, this is a great way to interview.